Hello, and welcome to the PSE Disciplinary Documentation Training. This training is designed to help the local coordinator understand the disciplinary documentation process and reporting procedure for academic and behavioral performance-related issues. You may pause the training at any time in order to catch up on any notes that you're taking. Let's get started. Here's the agenda for our training. We will review the guidelines from where the information for the disciplinary documentation is derived, explore the disciplinary documentation overview, explain the disciplinary process, documentation, and reporting procedure for academic and behavioral performance-related issues. First, we're going to talk about what PSE uses as a benchmark when preparing the disciplinary letters and setting student goals. The PSE Terms of Participation, also known as the PSE Rules, includes a list of student rules and expectations pertaining to their participation on the program. The document is located in the PSE Student and Host Family Handbooks and can also be found in the ZAP Resources section. It is important that you, as a local coordinator, become familiar with the terms of participation so that you have a full understanding of the expectations of students and can reference them when issues arise. Again, the disciplinary documentation is derived from these guidelines. So, why is the disciplinary documentation process so important? Here are some reasons. Addressing these problems early will help promote communication between your students and host families and will help to prevent issues from escalating. Students need to understand that they cannot just move to a different host family if they're unhappy with their current placement. Rather, they need support in order to work through the issues that they're experiencing. Oftentimes, the situation can be easily resolved through effective communication and conflict resolution. The disciplinary documentation is clearly defined in order to help resolve issues and hopefully prevent a student relocation from occurring, unless, of course, the student's safety is a concern. When student and host family issues arise, it is necessary to document all information for the sending organization and natural parents. Having a streamlined documentation process in place will allow the sending organization and natural parents to be notified and fully aware of any issues that have arisen during the student exchange experience. This will also inform them of what PSE is doing to help the student and host family find a proper resolution. In our LC2 training, we learned that prior to program termination, there are several steps to the disciplinary process with regards to behavior issues. One or more steps may be skipped based on the nature or seriousness of the infraction. As you become more experienced with this process, it will be easier to determine what approach to take. Always seek coaching and direction from your regional manager. First, the student should be given a verbal warning. Some behavior might be seen as borderline or based on extenuating circumstances. Certain behaviors may be justified but not acceptable, depending on the situation. The next step is to issue the student a letter of encouragement. The letter of encouragement is the first official documentation of the issue, but is more of a reminder of what we expect of the student regarding their behavior. It contains friendly, suggestive language. For example, I understand, instead of words like I must. Depending on the situation, the student could be directly placed on a positive action plan, or this may be the second step in an escalating disciplinary documentation process. The positive action plan is a notification of unacceptable behavior which is compromising the quality of the exchange program. In the positive action plan, the student is presented with the desired goals to work towards. Probation is presented to a student for a serious infraction or for an escalating situation in which no improvement is being made. The purpose of placing a student on probation is to determine whether or not a student is able to make the necessary behavioral changes in order to remain on the program. Final probation may be considered for extreme situations, and this is the last step in the disciplinary documentation process before termination. Termination, which is when the student is sent home, is the last option and rarely occurs. In fact, out of 300 students, approximately only 5 to 10 are sent home for poor behavior in a given year. The language that is used in the documentation is kept simple and easy to understand so that the students will clearly understand their goals and areas of improvement. Here's an important point. Please keep in mind that the school issues the I-20, so we must work closely with the school if we're considering student termination. The school needs to be informed of serious student issues, and an official letter from the school should be obtained for concerning issues that pertain to school expectations, so it can be included in the documentation. Although we have this process in place, each situation is very unique. Therefore, how issues are handled may vary from situation to situation based on factors such as severity, length of time an issue has occurred, and the number of issues the student is working on improving. Always discuss each student issue with your regional manager for guidance. The disciplinary documents used by PSE include letter of encouragement, positive action plan, probation, and final probation. Each of these forms of documentation requires a request form that needs to be filled out and returned to the PSE office before the documentation is issued. The average turnaround time to get the disciplinary documentation back from the PSE office after submitting the appropriate request form is 1 to 2 days. Next, we will recap the disciplinary documents and request forms for each. The letter of encouragement provides points of guidance to students when they have exhibited behaviors that are concerning to the host family, local coordinator, and/or the school. This is the first step in the disciplinary documentation process when an issue has been identified and it has been determined that disciplinary action is needed. You, as the local coordinator, should first mediate the issue with the student and host family and/or the school, either in person or over the phone, and provide a summary of the issue or issues and your mediation efforts in the LOE request form. Both the student and the host family should be informed ahead of time that the student will be receiving a letter of encouragement. Now, let's take a look at the letter of encouragement request form. Here is an example of a letter of encouragement request form, which can be found in the resources section of ZAP. First, you'll need to populate the fields requesting the student's name, regional manager and local coordinator's names, the school, the name of the person completing the form, and the date. Then, select any areas that need improvement, such as grades, attendance, following rules, communicating in English, or over-communication with home country as examples. In this example, you'll see that the student's key area of improvement is in school attendance. If the existing issue is not listed, you may select Other and then provide a description. You'll see here that the following items are required: the completed expectations worksheet, the student's current grades, if it is an academic issue, and then a summary of the issue or issues should be typed on the second page of the form. At this time, please pause the training and read the summary. Then click on the play button to resume the training. As mentioned before, the school holds the I-20. Therefore, it is really important to obtain an official letter from the school, if possible, for any relevant academic issues, and include any stated school expectations or deadlines in the LOE request form. If you are able to obtain one, the school letter should be emailed in conjunction with the LOE request form to the PSE office. The instructions for emailing the form and required attachments are listed at the bottom of both pages of the form. Once it has been determined that a letter of encouragement for a student is needed, the LOE request form should be completed and returned to the PSE office within a week. Here is an example of a letter of encouragement. This letter explains the reasons for the disciplinary documentation and includes areas for improvement that correspond to those that were selected on the request form. In this example, the LOE has been issued to the student for school attendance and tardiness. The terms of participation that corresponds to the area requiring improvement is listed. In this case, terms of participation number 32, along with a specific behavioral action plan. In this example, it states, "Per the letter provided by ABC School, I understand that I cannot miss any more school this academic year without a note from a healthcare provider." The bottom of the letter has an acknowledgement section and requires signatures and dates from the student, host family, and local coordinator. The local coordinator should try to meet with their student and host family to deliver the letter of encouragement within a week of the document being provided. After the meeting, please scan and email the signed document back to the PSE office. The positive action plan is presented to a student when an existing issue is not resolved despite previous guidance and mediation, and/or if the issue being addressed is more severe in nature. Again, a summary of the issue or issues should be included in the request form. Both the student and the host family should be informed ahead of time that the student will be receiving a positive action plan. Additionally, for a positive action plan, statements from the student and the host family need to be obtained prior to a PAP being requested. These statements are necessary so that both the student and the host family perspectives are considered and documented. Now, let's take a look at the positive action plan request form. Here's an example of the positive action plan request form, which can be found in the resources section of ZAP. First, you'll need to populate the student's name, regional manager and local coordinator's names, the school, the name of the person completing the form, and the date. You'll also indicate whether or not the student is already on an LOE, or letter of encouragement. Then, select any areas that need improvement. As indicated in this example, the student needs to make improvements in the following areas: grades, respect to the host family or others, following rules, and overuse of technology. You'll see here that the following items are required: the completed expectations worksheet, the student's current grades, if it's an academic issue, a summary of the issue or issues which will be typed on the second page of the form. At this time, please pause the training to read the summary of issues. Then, click on the play button to resume the training. And again, please note that a student statement and a host family statement are both required and should be inserted into page 3 of this form. This information can be attached in a separate document, copied and pasted from an email, or summarized from a phone call with the student. At this time, please pause the training and read both the student and host family statements. Then click on the play button to resume the training. The instructions for emailing this form and required attachments are listed at the bottom of all pages of the form. Once it has been determined that a positive action plan for a student is needed, the PAP request form should be completed and returned to the PSE office within a week. Here's an example of a positive action plan. It explains the reasons for the disciplinary documentation and includes required areas of improvement that correspond with those selected on the request form. Then, the areas requiring improvement, which are based on the terms of participation, are listed along with a specific behavioral action plan. The bottom of the letter, which is not pictured, has an acknowledgement section and requires the signatures of the student, host family, and local coordinator. The local coordinators should try to meet with their student and host family to deliver the positive action plan within a week of the document being provided. After the meeting, please scan and email the signed document back to the PSE office. A student will be put on probation when all other disciplinary efforts, for example mediation, a letter of encouragement, or positive action plan, have been made to address and resolve the issue and no improvement has been made, and/or if an issue is serious enough to bypass the previous 2 disciplinary steps. Here are some important notes. If probation is being requested, the regional manager should be the person to speak directly with the student personally to assess the situation prior to submitting the probation request form. Both the student and the host family should be informed ahead of time that the student will be receiving a probation. Similar to the positive action plan, statements from both the student and the host family should be obtained in order for a probation to be requested. Now, let's take a look at the probation request form. The probation request form, which can be found in the resources section of ZAP. First, you'll need to populate the fields requesting the student's name, regional manager, and local coordinator's names, the school, the name of the person completing the form, and the date. You'll also need to indicate whether the student has already been issued a letter of encouragement and/or positive action plan. In this example, the student has already been issued a positive action plan, or PAP. Then, select any areas that need improvement. As indicated in this example, the student needs improvement in the areas of grades, respect to host family or others, failure to follow rules, and under the category Other, it indicates that the student also needs improvement in the areas of dishonesty and attending a party with underage drinking. You'll see here that the following items are required: the completed expectations worksheet, the student's current grades, if it's an academic issue, a summary of the issue or issues, which will be typed on the second page of the form. And again, please note that a student statement and a host family statement are both required and should be inserted into page 3 of this form. At this time, please pause the training and read the summary of issues. Then, click on the play button to resume the training. At this time, please pause the training and read both the student and host family statements. Then click on the play button to resume the training. The instructions for emailing the form and required attachments are listed at the bottom of all pages of the form. Once it has been determined that probation for a student is needed, the probation request form should be completed and returned to the PSE office within a week. Here is an example of a probation letter. It explains the reasons for the disciplinary documentation and includes required areas of improvement that correspond with those selected on the request form. Then, the areas requiring improvement, which are based on the terms of participation, are listed along with a specific behavioral action plan. The bottom of the letter has an acknowledgement section and requires the signatures of the student, host family, local coordinator, and the natural parents. The local coordinator should try to meet with their student and host family to deliver the probation letter within a week of the document being provided. After the meeting, please scan and email the signed document back to the PSE office. Final probation is considered a serious offense level. The regional manager and PSE office are responsible for making this determination after careful consideration of the issues. Disciplinary documentation should be used as a tool. In almost all cases, goals and expectations should be explained to the student prior to the paperwork being requested. Under severe circumstances, for example, a student caught drinking, a statement should be obtained from the student as soon as possible. The documentation will often follow within 24 hours or less. The disciplinary documentation process is also important for tracking purposes. The process, if followed correctly, allows PSE to have proper documentation in place that will be helpful should the student be terminated in the future. This is why we request that our LCs obtain both student and host family statements and school letters when possible about an issue when requesting disciplinary action, so that we have all sides of the story documented as proof of what the issue was, how it was handled, and the perspectives of everyone involved. Always discuss and address any disciplinary documentation requests with your regional manager first. The RM will then work with you to obtain the necessary information and submit it to the PSE office. At times, the situation may not end up calling for disciplinary documentation. Please remember that statements are required for all documents, with the exception of the letter of encouragement, and should be obtained as quickly as possible. However, in severe circumstances, they will need to be obtained immediately. This is the PSE Disciplinary Action Document Flowchart. To locate a printed version of this document in the ZAP Resources section, type in the word Flowchart in the search field. There are 11 steps to the disciplinary action documentation reporting procedure. Let's take a look at each step of the reporting process as defined within this flowchart. Here are the first 3 steps. Step 1. The local coordinator becomes aware of a student issue and speaks with the student and the host family separately. Step 2. The local coordinator facilitates a mediation session with the student and the host family together. Step 3. The local coordinator then provides all of this information to the regional manager. If mediation does not resolve the issue, then we move to the next step. Step 4. The local coordinator will complete a letter of encouragement, or LOE, request form and send it to the PSE office. Please keep in mind that the PSE office would prefer to receive the request forms with full information within a week of identifying that a student needs disciplinary documentation. Step 5. The final letter of encouragement is shared with the student and the sending organization, and the signed form is returned to the PSE office. The PSE office would also prefer to receive the signed forms back within a week. Then, we wait to see if improvement is made. The waiting period is usually case by case, but we wouldn't proceed to the next step without giving the student about a month to improve, unless it was a severe case. If no improvement is made, Step 6. The local coordinator obtains written statements from both the host family and the student after speaking with them separately. Step 7. The regional manager completes a positive action plan request form and submits it to the PSE office. Step 8. The final positive action plan is shared with the student and the sending organization. The signed form is returned to the PSE office. Again, we wait for improvement to be made. If no improvement is made, then, Step 9, the regional manager speaks directly with the student and the host family separately and obtains written statements from both. Step 10, the regional manager completes a probation request form and submits it to the PSE office. And Step 11, the probation is finalized and shared with the student and the sending organization, and the signed form is returned to the PSE office. This is the end of the disciplinary documentation flowchart. As mentioned before, although we have this process in place, each situation is very unique and how it is handled can vary from situation to situation. This process serves as an overall guideline. However, the actions taken will vary based on factors such as severity, length of time an issue has occurred, and the number of issues the student is working on improving. Let's take a look at an example. In this example, the host family reports that the student is having trouble keeping their room clean and being respectful to the host family. The local coordinator talks with the student about the issues and about the consequences of not changing the behaviors. The student is given time to improve the behavior, allowing about 2 weeks. The local coordinator calls the host family to see how the situation is going. If the situation has not improved, the local coordinator talks with the host family and the students separately and schedules a mediation. The local coordinator discusses with their regional manager if disciplinary documentation is necessary. PSE prepares the disciplinary documentation and sends it to the regional manager and local coordinator within a day or two of the completed request form being received. The local coordinator presents the document to the student and the host family, collects their signatures, then sends it back to the PSE office within a week of the document being delivered. The local coordinator follows up with the host family on how the student is doing and keeps the regional manager updated on their progress. Now, we'll explore the topic of tutoring. All PSE students should strive to maintain a C grade or above in every class. If the student struggles and their grades are below a C, they will be given approximately 1 month to make improvements before they will be asked to arrange tutoring, unless there are any special circumstances that require immediate attention. If your student has received tutoring for 3 months and their grades have not improved, or if they're refusing to get a tutor, a letter of encouragement most often should be presented to them to provide points of guidance and support to help them succeed. It's time to assist your student with getting a tutor when your student is failing multiple classes, in other words, when their grades are below C in 2 or more classes, or they have insufficient English ability to comprehend the material in class, or when the school has expressed concern about the student's academic progress. Here are the best options to help your student find a tutor. Check to see if the school offers free tutoring or academic assistance. Ask the school for a recommended tutor. Use the website wiseant.com, which provides private tutors for any subject you may need and will indicate whether or not the tutor has a current background check. Inform your student that the cost of a tutor per hour may range anywhere from $30 to $50, depending on the area. Please remember that academic issues need to be addressed promptly and effectively. Our relationships with schools is crucial to our success. Waiting too long to address an academic issue may prevent a student from being able to return to the school. We strongly rely on our local coordinators to bring these issues to our attention, and documentation is key. PSE needs to be sure to document any issues that arise during the program in order to support the student, our partner agencies, and natural parents, and to protect PSE as an organization. Returning PSE students who have received prior disciplinary documentation will usually remain on this documentation for the following school year. As these issues are situational, they are reviewed on a case-by-case basis by the regional managers. This is the end of the PSE disciplinary documentation training. If you have any questions regarding this training or the process defined within, please contact your regional manager for support and guidance. Thank you.